And thank you and stay well to all of our panelists just now who brought so much color to that session on South Asia, particularly to Mia Seppa, who moderated so brilliantly. She is, of course, the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Bangladesh. Well, let's pivot off that moment and plunge into the next, because we now have a collaborative co-hosted session by Global Compact local chapters in Indonesia, in Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, and the Philippines. So we're giving you a really nice sweep of the region, having gone to South Asia with Mio and now to Southeast Asia through Global Compact. This session is going to convene business leaders across ASEAN regions who will discuss the importance and value of setting and integrating ambitious goals across operations and supply chains for businesses and the principle-based approach to achieving on the SDGs. Now, our speakers are also going to explore the ambitious goals that they're setting for themselves in the realm of the SDG Accelerator ambition and the enabling instruments to drive its successful implementation. So quite often, not only in the UN system, but in different facets of our work, whichever organization you represent, or it could be that you're representing yourself, we have these great ideas and we have these fantastic agreements, but often what comes next is that implementation. How do we actually make it happen? And then how do we link it to people and communities so that your vision really is felt by the people that you design it for? It's my pleasure now to introduce Jurgen Coppens. He's going to have some of those answers, maybe all of the answers. Jurgen Coppens is Managing Director of Accenture Strategy in Southeast Asia. He's going to lead us over the next hour and hopefully bring us to a point and to a new front line where what we can do after this Leaders Summit is going to be richer than before. Jurgen Coppens, it's over to you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jurgen Coppens. I'm a Managing Director at Accenture Strategy, Southeast Asia, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. Thank you all for joining today's session on SDG Ambition, mobilizing ambitious corporate actions toward the global goals. This session will discuss the important role the private sector plays in helping meet the SDGs, and we'll learn from various ASEAN business leaders about how they have gone about setting their own goals and executing on those ambitions. Through these stories and insights, we want to inspire other companies on this journey and also learn from each other, identifying how common challenges can be overcome. We will also be hearing a keynote speech from His Excellency Erick Thohir, Minister of State-Owned Enterprise of the Republic of Indonesia. And after that, we'll also have a panel discussion. Minister Erick Thohir initiated the transformation of hundreds of state-owned enterprises under his ministry towards becoming global players and having important roles in achieving in supporting the achievement of the 2030 development agenda. He is also appointed by President Jokowi as the Chief Executive of the National Economic Recovery and COVID-19 Management Team. This team will takes a role in synergizing and orchestrating across all ministries and implementing programs related to the handling of the coronavirus and efforts to recover the economy. Minister Erick Thohir's appointment was based on the main consideration that state-owned enterprise does move a third of the national economy, covering numerous business sectors and industries, as well as healthcare. We are honored with his presence at this UN Global Compact Leaders Summit and for him to deliver the keynote speech. Minister Erick Thohir, the floor is yours.
Distinguished panelists, guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the UN Global Compact for this opportunity in representing the Indonesian government at this important summit. It is a tremendous honor for me to be among you today. The COVID-19 pandemic has revealed a new paradigm on how world synergy can be formed, and also show us the wisdom of what is already inherent in the Sustainable Development Goals. The challenge we face at the present cannot be dealt in isolations. Almost all countries are struggling to mitigate this COVID-19 pandemic and to minimize its impact against health and socio-economic development. It is clear that COVID-19 pandemic has had and without intervention will continue to have severe impact towards the global sustainability agenda. Nevertheless, the current pandemic imposed condition will provide an opportunity to build a better world by implementing more sustainable policies and action. So, how can business communities and corporate action be mobilized? Not only to survive the economic downturn of this pandemic, but also to transform our world towards the global sustainability goals. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are refocusing our strategies and resources to adapt with and to combat this pandemic, there is a profound demand to reshape how we can achieve these SDGs. This situation is not only applied in government, but also within businesses. As the Minister of State-Owned Enterprise, I manage over 100 state-owned enterprises, of which operation consistently contribute at more than 16% per annum of GDP since 2018. This figure represents 1/3 of Indonesia's economy. While operating as a profit organizations, Indonesia SOEs are also carrying out another role as Indonesia's agent of development that have a special mission to provide public services to greatest welfare of Indonesian people. These dual roles are being maintained during this pandemic. As iterated by the UN Secretary General, the pandemic is a wake-up call. Our assumptions and approach we have to alter to allow us to survive this hard time. During this COVID-19 period, I see an opportunity to accelerate the transformation of our SOEs, and in parallel, to submerge greater societal equality and sustainability along our corporate ambitions. For us, our SOEs, transformation highlighting good corporate governance or GCG, the SDGs, and the COVID-19 pandemic response are all intertwined. Allow me to elaborate on some of our strategic initiatives that resonate with this. Firstly, our drive to transform our SOE to be resilient, competitive, while adhering to GCG is closely aligned with the SDG goal number 16, peace, justice, and strong institution. We are taking bold action to restructure our industry cluster from 27 to 12. Our businesses portfolio from 146 SOEs to 41 until 2023. And adopting centralized monitoring to reduce SOEs' fiscal burden, and currently 85% of our SOE have implemented ISO 37001:2016 anti-bribery management system, and will hopefully be 100% implemented this year. Secondly, for the first time in the country history, aligned with SDGs goal number 5 on gender equality, we have set a target to increase female representation in the boardroom by 15% this year and 25% in 2023 as the KPIs for BODs across all SOEs. Another initiative of our SOEs have been the government's key strategic partner toward SDG goal of no poverty and zero hunger. SOE's active participation to closely manage the stability of staple food supplies and prices, as well as to ensure swift distribution on various social protection stimulus have supported millions of families and micro, small, medium enterprises, including 10 million households below poverty line and another 33 million households receive electricity discount from our state-owned company. Thanks to these various social protection programs, poverty rate can be reduced to the number of 8.9% from the previous estimate of 10.9% between March to December 2020. Moreover, the COVID-19 crisis has revealed deep vulnerabilities in our health infrastructure to the maturity of our health system. The active involvement of our pharmaceutical holding company, Biopharma, and our hospital holding company, EHC, has allowed to effectively mobilize our resources and accelerating the swift health recovery. The resources extend from ensuring PCR test supplies and kits, availability of beds at hospitals, securing COVID-19 vaccine supplies, down to vaccination 1.4 million people in our vaccination centers. On top of it, we are also building integrated technology-driven vaccine distribution and digital healthcare ecosystem. We are optimistic that we will escalate stronger after the recovery from this pandemic. Our aforementioned efforts are supporting our intention to fulfill SDG goal number 3, the good health and well-being. In addressing the SDG goal number 8, decent work and economic growth, the state-owned enterprise and small-medium enterprise are the key drivers. Our SOE have been a key instrument to retain earning opportunities and job creation, especially through government strategic projects and public services. Meanwhile, our state-owned bank drives 60% of financing for our small-medium enterprise, helping this small-medium enterprise to survive and grow during the pandemic. Furthermore, as Indonesia is in transition towards green economy and energy, our SOEs are deploying mass production of a homegrown electric scooters brand, while Pertamina, the oil and gas state-owned enterprise, is targeting to achieve revenue contribution from the new and renewable energy sector of 5.7% of the company's total consolidated revenue by 2030. In 2020, the company, which has been included as part of SDGs 2000, success in reducing its greenhouse gas emission by 27.08% and is targeting a further reduction of 30% by 2030. Moreover, it is on the process deploying environmental, social, and governance policy by 2022. All this aligned with the affordable, reliable, sustainable, modern energy goal. Last but not least, from our Indonesian Human Capital Forum, of which members are all the Chief Human Capital Officer in SOE, is currently formulating to achieve gender equality goal. All this above-mentioned proof that we can align our corporate ambition with sustainable recovery and sustainable development goals while facing this COVID-19 hard times. From our point of view, sustainability is in fact a mechanism to create a more resilient business and economy as well as equitable developments. Ladies and gentlemen, I love sports. If we observe from any basketball or soccer game, the success can only be achieved by teamwork. Each individual plays their role to achieve team goal. Taking the same experience, this summit is a fabulous opportunity and a momentum for each participant to use their knowledge and expertise to redefine, recommit, reunited our ambition and take on the new ways in achieving SDGs in 2030. I hope this panel discussion and this session will inspire a sparkling exchange of ideas and inspire us to reconnect unlikely dots, explore pathways, and discover bold initiatives that we have not seen before. We are optimistic that public and private sector can collaboratively transform action, while business in the private or state-owned can mobilize their action, ambition, and resources toward SDGs. Thank you. Have a wonderful collaborative discussion towards the rest of this summit.
Thank you to His Excellency Erick Thohir for a very insightful keynote speech. We now move on to the panel discussion, where we'll explore elements of the journeys of various leading companies within the ASEAN region. So I'm very pleased to have with us today the leaders of several companies. So I'd like to welcome Ms. Anna Ho, Chief Human Resource Officer of Vena Energy, a leading independent power producer based in Singapore and with operations across the Asia-Pacific region. Also welcoming Mr. Ho Ren Hua, Chief Executive Officer of Taiwan Public Company, a leading pioneer in starch and food industries, headquartered in Thailand with operations across 15 operations across 5 countries, excuse me. I would also like to welcome Ms. Ho Shin Hua, the Divisional General Manager of Group Corporate Service of EcoWorld Development Group Berhad, a leading developer based in Malaysia. And finally, Mr. Sabin Aboitis, the President and CEO of Ipotis Equity Ventures based in the Philippines. So welcome to all our distinguished panelists, and looking forward to the discussion with each one of you. So maybe to start the discussion on a bit of the understanding the specific backgrounds of the companies, specific objectives that companies have set and journeys they have been on. I would like to invite, maybe starting with Anna Ho, to maybe share a bit more about the context, right, of your industry and the specific goals that you have been setting.
Sure, Jurgen, thank you. And I actually anticipated I'd be the first, Anna being A. If we go by the company, then Mr. Aboitis will be the next, right? Okay, let me introduce Vena. So Vena Energy is a leading pure renewable energy independent power producer in APAC. We actually develop, construct, own, operate solar, wind, energy storage projects right across APAC. And we have extensive local presence of over 600 employees, and we have about 10 corporate offices and 38 site offices, site meaning where our projects are. So you talk about sustainability goals and that have been set as a company and rationale. So as a developer, builder, and owner of renewable energy assets, Vena Energy's core business wholly capture the opportunities arising from global movements to decarbonize. It's natural, right? This is what we do. I always say that we actually create things that God gave us, wind and sun. Right? And this is directly relevant to the SDG 7 and 13, which is a provision of affordable clean energy and climate action, respectively. So our corporate mission is to accelerate the energy transition across APAC And we place the sustainable and affordable development of renewable energy projects at the center of all our strategy. We retain our competitiveness through vertical integration of development, value chain, and geography integration of our operation acting as one Vena. Now, due to the sheer size, it allows us to compress costs and provide a clean energy solution to our customers, which is also economically viable. Sustainability remains the centerpiece of Vena Energy's corporate strategy as we aim to deliver stable long-term performance to our stakeholders. And this includes employees, host communities, suppliers, customers, hopefully like you and I, regulators and investors. Now, in addition to providing this affordable, clean, renewable energy to our clients, our sustainability goals encapsulate sustaining the overall well-being of our host communities by supporting quality healthcare, environmental preservation, and infrastructure for essential services, and fostering economic growth through job creation and provision of quality education. So, Jurgen, if I do anticipate that the next question on your mind could be, with the progress so far, what are the challenges that Vena may be facing with? So since the development of our first asset, we started in, our first asset was developed in 2012. Vena Energy has steadily expanded, and as of December 2020, our portfolio is comprised of 58 operating assets with a gross capacity of 1.8 gigawatt. We have also in our pocket 33 construction and shovel-ready projects with a capacity of 1.7 gigawatt and 100 plus projects under development with a gross capacity of over 13 gigawatt. So as an industry, there are several fundamental challenges that can be discussed, from technical limitations of renewable energy to physical risk of climate change and individual regulatory challenges by country. These are all fairly loaded topics, which I think we need days to discuss, which I won't touch on them one by one now. Okay, so as the CHRO of Vena, I looked more intensely or closely on the topic of diversity inclusion in both the renewable industry and Vena Energy as a whole. In the industry, and I think you do agree with me, women are generally very underrepresented in the energy industry. Like if I would say for Vena ourselves, at the, we call the executive committee, which is the, all the heads, right? I'm the only woman. I'm proud to say that. So with this really, really underrepresented, women underrepresented in this industry, our management has made a conscious effort to initiate change in this area. And we have set an ambitious target of reaching gender equality in the next decade. So gender equality has also been the Vena Energy's team's focus as part of the UNGC's SDG Ambition Accelerator program. On gender equality, Vena Energy has been tackling this issue in several fronts. And one is internally by hiring and retention efforts of our female candidates. Having said that, we still believe in meritocracy. We will only make conscious effort in making the choice of a female with equal qualifications, right? Now, number two, we also take steps to increase, now where we are tapping the talent from is from the industry. So by increasing the supply, the talent supply in the industry, it will help us to also achieve our target. So what we have done is we've been partnering with universities and sponsoring female talent pursuing the STEM fields. And internally, domestically, within our office, within our company, we have also gone using our social media campaigns to voice out female. And if you like to go into our LinkedIn page, you'll find Women in Power. And that's also given us some PR focus. Thank you. We've also strived to empower women through our CSR activities. So in Indonesia, for example, Vena Energy launched the Women Entrepreneurship Program in a purpose-built community center commissioned by Vena Energy in Jeneponto, South Sulawesi. The location is where the location where our Tolo Wind project is in. Now, this project has established to provide local villages with training on processing local agriculture produce and online marketing and branding techniques as a means of providing the communities with supplementary income channels and developing the overall local economy. So looking forward, so we'll talk about what's in the past, what we're doing currently. Looking forward, there's this general question that could be addressed in several ways, and I'd like to address this in our company's perspective in furthering our sustainability agenda. For our sustainability goals to be effectively executed and realized, it must be aligned to individual level, and it is critical that it's aligned to individuals' levels. So ensuring proper alignment and securing internal stakeholders' buy-in can at times be the biggest challenge for all of us here. So for us, the continuous employee engagement and education on matters as it relates to sustainability and the SDG is high on our priority list. So there's a clear top-down directive from the CEO all the way down to the last person in the company. We have very defined KPIs that are relevant and important that will support the D&I effort that we are achieving. Jurgen, that's my speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much
Hope it's not too overwhelming for you.
sharing.
Thank you.
No, but having great insights on the range of the types of goals you set, right? Obviously beyond just clean energy, but also from healthcare to community, the programs linked to that. And you mentioned the importance of incorporating these targets into your operations, right? How do we operationalize all of this so that we have a way to track and a way to action? Thanks a lot for sharing. And maybe I'll stick to the order of the introductions and maybe invite Ho Ren Hua from Taiwan Public Company to also share a bit like the journey, right? That Taiwan has been on. So from the elements of targets and ambitions to the progress, some of the challenges, and how we're going about things.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jurgen. Very good morning to everyone, and hello from Thailand. My name is Ren Hua, and I'm the CEO of a Taiwan Public Company. We're an agri-food company based in Southeast Asia, primarily headquartered in Bangkok, with 15 operations around the region, including China, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Indonesia. The company's portfolio spans across all areas of food, starch, and tapioca-related products. Currently, we are one of the largest tapioca-related producers in the region. So we produce over close to 500,000 tons of tapioca-related products from Southeast Asia exported to the rest of the world. In terms of thinking about our sustainability program and our framework, we essentially craft our 4 pillars, and we try to tie that in close to the UN SDG goals. So namely, they are the 4S, farm, factory, family, and food. And this is inherently close to our mission of being a value creation producer from farm to shelf. In terms of farm, we have got numerous projects where we're actually looking to triple or even quadruple our efforts across farming. We started various efforts this year, for example, our own greenhouses, planting new yields, use of agri-technology, and digital financing for farmers. Because every day we work with close to about 10,000 farmers across the region, not just in Thailand, but Cambodia and Vietnam as well. The farm element of creating sustainability from farm to shelf is a very key part of the company's motto and the company's philosophy. The second part would be what we call factory. So as you know, in manufacturing base, there's a very key element of actually taking care of our workers, compliance, ethical audits, safety, wellness. By far, the most important thing for our factory workforce is dealing with COVID-19. Currently right now, across the board, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, we're making sure to keep all our workers safe. We're trying to get them vaccinated as quickly as possible. We are adopting different insurance programs. So in a pre-COVID world, in the way we think about sustainability might be a bit different. But currently in an in-COVID world, the way we think about sustainability for our workforce is really about keeping them safe and getting them vaccinated as quickly as possible, because we've got broad operations across the region. The third part will be family. In different areas where Taiwan operates, we work very closely with local communities. So when we think about our operations, we like to look at a 1 or 2 hour radius around where we operate. It could be farms, it could be schools, it could be hospitals, but really engaging a lot with the local community is a very key part. So the sustainability effort on how we think about the family part is to look from a localized presence, working around with local communities. Typically, it will be schools, hospitals, farm communities, and thinking what we could do more. It could be piloting new projects. So we do farmer trial workshops. We started to invest a bit more in education scholarships, but taking a much more local capacity and local capability building to what we're doing in various parts of Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And then finally, the last one will be food. As you know, food is something that is integral to all our lives. COVID-19 has heightened the need for healthier, more convenient organic food. Tapioca is a very unique crop because tapioca originates a lot from Southeast Asia. It is GMO-free, it is grain-free, it is gluten-free. So developing different types of tapioca food products, tapioca solutions, tapioca-based noodles is something where it's very core to the company. So these are really the 4 Fs in how we think about developing our sustainability strategy and sustainability framework: farm, factory, family, and food. And last but not least, we are launching a new platform by end of the year to be on the leading bioplastics producer in the region. We are commissioning the first product for bioplastics, where we actually are going to use tapioca-based bioplastics to formulate into different compostable and biodegradable solutions. This brings us into the biopackaging arena, which is a very exciting field right now, currently given all the developments in biopackaging and sustainable packaging. And this is truly core to our mission of creating value from farm to shelf. I'll just end here with a short note that I think in spite and despite all these best efforts towards sustainability, to me personally, the most important thing during this period is keeping our companies and families safe. Something that I don't take for granted. I think across Southeast Asia, as of today, whether it's Singapore, it's Thailand, it's KL, it's Indonesia, we are going through a pretty intense wave. I think the responsibility of companies to take care of our people, keep them socially distant, vaccinate as fast as possible is very, very important. So thank you for having us, and thank you to the organizers of this event.
Thank you very much for sharing the wide range of your sustainability efforts across the 4 Fs. And here also a lot of, as you were saying, emphasis on making it real local communities and keeping people safe, and also some quite exciting things from an innovation perspective, right? As you mentioned, the sustainable packaging and some of the new horizons you're looking at. So may I invite maybe next Ms. Wong Shu Han, to share a bit the journey that EcoWorld Development Group Berhad has been on.
Thank you, Jurgen. I know my name is difficult to pronounce. It is Shu Yan.
Apologies.
It's all right. My father had a good sense of humor when I was born. Okay. I am actually the Divisional General Manager of Group Corporate Services at EcoWorld Development Group Berhad, which is a property developer operating in Malaysia. We have an associate, a 27% associate that undertakes developments in the UK and Australia. But for my company, we mainly operate in Malaysia, in the central region, which is of course Kuala Lumpur and the surrounding conurbations. We operate in Johor, which is just north of Singapore. And we operate in Penang, which I think, most people outside Malaysia know well because, that is the Pearl of the Orient. Okay, so our company is actually a very young company. We only emerged on the property scene towards the end of 2013. However, our leaders are people who are very well known in the industry, and individually, many of them have more than 20, in some cases 30 over years of property development experience, not just in Malaysia, but also in the United Kingdom, in Australia, in Singapore, and Vietnam, in the previous company that we worked with. So because of this wide global exposure, when we first started, sustainability was established as a core value from the very outset. It is reflected in our choice of name. We call ourselves EcoWorld, right? And also in our vision statement, where we say we want to create tomorrow and beyond. This vision guides our aspirations to always push boundaries to see how we can better improve people's living experience and to build homes and properties that will last for generations. But our concept of sustainability is not just about going green. We consider that, in everything we do in terms of the longevity, the positive impact that we hopefully, we can make in the community and perhaps the world. And, that, in terms of how we execute that, it involves how we craft our master plans, how we look at the kind of lifestyles we want to create for the people that we see. The virtual background that you see behind me is actually it is the largest development that we've taken. We started this development only in 2016, and today, it is what you see at the back of me now, right? And on top of that, we also want to create long-term value, not just for our customers, but the surrounding communities in terms of meaningful work employment, business opportunities, for the people who deal with us, our business associates, and also ensuring that we have every necessary element in place, to be responsible to every stakeholder group that we deal with. Our sustainability committee is actually led directly by our CEO. And the way we have organized ourselves is that all our executive C-suites and other top management personnel are in the sustainability committee. So because of that, we have been able to embed and have these kind of active discussions in terms of principles throughout the operation, from the business unit undertaking, the actual development itself to the support units who support the back end of the operations, right? And we are quite fortunate because we think that, these efforts have gained us a very good following. Despite being quite a young company, we have to date sold, 25,000 over properties. We have delivered close to 18,000 properties. And in terms of sales value achieved over the past 7 to 8 years, it's about 23 billion in terms of properties sold, right? Coming down to maybe some challenges that we have encountered, and I think, that is something that UNGC did ask us to cover as well, right? I think it's maybe in 3 aspects. The first, of course, is, as Renhua mentioned, COVID is a very, very real challenge. It's not just a health challenge. The knock-on economic pressures that's, affected every person, in the country and the world, has really maybe brought affordability, down in a big way. And for it to be able to recover, it's going to take time. So as such, cost control for businesses is more important than ever before. We must ensure we can deliver affordable products to our customers and yet at the same time have enough money left to meet the obligations to our other stakeholders, be that our employees, our business associates, our bankers, our shareholders, or even the broader community that we support. So one of the things that I think we find, as a challenge, because Malaysia as a country is kind of like at the we are above the 50%, I suppose, if you look at a lot of the categories, but we're nowhere near the top 25% yet. So we're still learning in our sustainability journey. The regulators are doing a good job in terms of promoting sustainability very, very much. But the thing is that, sometimes, as we promote the importance of sustainability, we also have to ensure that the cost burden of achieving sustainability doesn't fall disproportionately on businesses that are already struggling to overcome the myriad problems that have been caused by the pandemic. And we need to develop, a holistic ecosystem where buyers are prepared to pay for sustainable products. Regulators understand, the challenges, real life challenges and are willing to allow people to step up naturally so that it is more widely accepted. Then and only then can we have a proper system that can last for generations and can give our children and grandchildren the future that we hope for. I think that's it for my part. So yeah.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot for sharing. I think what I kind of like noted down or stood out is, obviously having the sustainability kind of element at the core of your vision to begin with, but then as you share, the ambitions are go way beyond just going green. Right, and I think interesting was also to which extent it's front and center of the very top of the company, right? In terms of all the decisions we make and how we go about things. Also, just the very wide impacts of COVID beyond just the health elements, but really also impacting, people's affordability, ability to, to buy, etc., and so impacting the wider market as such, and then a bit of the, the balancing act of a lot of our countries in the region, right, that are, that are on the journey towards sustainability, but also have some, very real challenges to deal with, right, in terms of the day-to-day as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me maybe invite Mr. Sabin to share also the story of Aboitiz Equity Ventures. So I understand you're across, quite a few industries. So very keen to learn more about the journey that you've been on.
Yeah, thank you, Jurgen. Good afternoon. Good morning. Morning to everybody. Well, Anna, you would probably fit perfect with us. So jump over anytime you want in the energy part, because we're almost 50% women and they run our lives, So, and we enjoy it, by the way. So, but seriously speaking, we are a 100-year-old family company. My great-grandfather was the start. He did the smartest thing. He married the boss's daughter, and that's where everything started. So we're a 100-year company. We provide life essential products and services to nearly 20% of the Philippine population, which is, a lot of it is quite poor. These products include power, banking, land, food, infrastructure, construction, and now data science. So we have a long history of doing good in business, and we have a foundation that gives about 1% of our, we've had this for years, 1% of our net profit into the communities. And part of our brand promise actually is advancing business and community. So we've always been very community oriented. And as we like to call it, we also are driven by our commitment to good governance and good corporate social responsibility. Inequality, our thinking is inequality is growing around the world. I know this is going to be, I might sound a little bit, so I ask everybody to keep a bit of an open mind. I thought I'd throw a different angle to the conversation. Inequality is growing around the world. We all know that. The richer countries' policies, in my opinion, should be to narrow that gap, right? And as a less developed country, the Philippines today is already behind the 8 ball there, right? And getting more and more behind the 8 ball as the digital world accelerates that inequality because of education, infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. Infrastructure and energy in particular is one thing I'd like to talk about, right? Well, because it's one of our businesses, both infrastructure and energy, right? So I think it'd be a good start to this conversation. So today, we're already using much more renewable energy than other countries. The Philippines, more than 30% of our power is already clean. And as a company, not only as a country, we already have the largest installed capacity for RE in the Philippines and are expanding our renewable portfolio to achieve a 50-50 renewable to thermal energy mix by 2030. So we have coal, we have all kinds except gas, right? We have coal, we have solar, we have a lot of hydro, we have geothermal, right? So for SDG 13, we are making significant strides to align with the goals of the Paris Agreement. And these include much more defined governance strategies, targets, and most importantly, metrics on climate action. We're also reducing our waste and greenhouse gas emissions and promoting responsible water consumption, contributing to the recovery of a circular economy, and as the first Philippine company to sign on with the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, providing our stakeholders with clearer and more reliable information. And that's where I want to talk about, which is clear and more reliable information, the real information. Poverty, we're talking about the problems that challenges us, right? Poverty is not just it's not just for us, but for the entire world, right? It's one of the biggest problems that we face. It's SDG 1, so let's start with that. One way to diminish poverty is to create jobs. And to create jobs, we need to attract industry. And to attract industry, we need to have competitive infrastructure and power. The Philippines, different from everybody else, is our power rates are higher than most countries because we don't have a subsidy at all. So what you see is what you get, right? Again, something that makes competitiveness a bit harder, right? So instead of it coming from the budget to subsidize and drive the wrong behaviors, I think I think having the real power cost is correct. And I talked earlier about real information because what we want to do is we want to make sure that people understand the real cost of green energy, right? So for example, when we have solar plants, right? We talk about solar being competitive with other industries or with other fuels, right? But we never talk about what happens when when the cloud cover comes in, right? Who's going to cover that cost, right? We never put that into the real formula, and therefore we don't understand it, and we drive a behavior, right, that creates more of a subsidy, right, and just puts more. It puts the government, cost the government more money, right? So our thing is really to make sure people have the right information, right, and that's what we keep trying to do. Also, the problem that we in the poorer nations face is that the richer countries seem to be constraining capital from coming to these countries, Africa, exactly, by putting things like, we won't finance coal plants, and we won't we won't insure coal plants, putting pressure, big funds putting pressure, when frankly, of course, they're already a developed nation. We're not, right? So how will we ever get there, right? Our solar panels are not made in the Philippines, so that goes to wherever. So that money is being sucked out again, right? So how do we get there? We will never be able to get there. And that's what I think, the richer countries should look at, right? And how to not put these capital constraints on the poorer nations, right? So it prevents us from providing affordable power, which is a requirement of SDG 7, right? It prevents us from achieving SDG 1 by keeping us poor. So these are the things that we try to come out when we talk and educate our shareholder base. We are 1 in 10 voices, so it's very difficult, right? We all deserve to be developed countries, so we need to solve this problem. We cannot do it alone. We need the richer countries to understand that we are not at their level, nowhere near it. In fact, a billionaire cannot expect a pauper to follow the same standards, right? And that's what is expected of us countries. So a billionaire must help the pauper. So yes, we need sustainable power, but we need it to support economical growth, and that is SDG 8. I could go on, and I don't think I want to do that, but I think you get my message, man. So sustainability is our common and necessary goal, and in order to achieve it, we must be able to see the whole picture, undistracted by misinformation or lack of information. We must all be fully informed about all the costs and benefits of renewable energy and find a sensible way to balance them with respect to our own individual situations. So I sometimes feel that when we talk about sustainability, we tend to focus more on saving the planet rather than the people who live on it, right? And so having, sharing, and spreading the correct information will keep us all focused on what really matters, right? Which is really life on Earth. So, thank you, Jurgen.
Thank you very much for the sharing. So I think here also it's very interesting to hear to which extent also these sustainability dimensions are at the core of your culture, right? From day one across the various generations of the company. But then also you touched upon this importance, right, of having the real accurate information, understanding externalities linked to that, how that impacts behaviors, and some of the challenges of also this part of the world versus some of the other regions or geographies that might be further along the journey. So thank you to all our panelists for these great insights. So in the next segment, I'll open up the discussion, right, a bit, and also encourage the panelists to exchange between themselves as well. But I first wanted to touch upon a bit of this point of, in all the discussions, we've heard about a wide range of goals, right? So it goes way beyond just the environmental dimensions, which is a lot of what you see in the news. And in each one of our discussions, right, all of you brought up the importance of also the social outcomes, right, in terms of the programs what you're doing, and a lot of focus on that. And so and this was touched on a little bit, but so do you really see that that balance being different, right, in our geographies? And what are some of the actions that that you're taking in terms of also bringing others along on some of these social dimensions, recognizing that it's not always easy as some of you have shared.
I think we can start on that, because I actually went to the Environmental Performance Index that Yale University prepares each time, right? And I just had a quick look and to see where we were at 2020. Singapore is number 39, Malaysia is 68, Thailand is 78, Philippines is 111, right? And this is ranked out of 180 countries. But if you look at the top score and the bottom score, Denmark scored on top, 82.5. right? Liberia, 22.6. The point difference for Malaysia, where we are kind of like, at 38% out of the 180, is difference between the highest to lowest is about 34.6. It's a big gap, right? From Denmark. But to the lowest, Liberia, it's only 24.3. But in percentage terms, we are a lot higher. So, it just really goes to make that point that, Mr. Avoitis was saying, for the more wealthy countries, the time that they have taken to develop, the structures that they have put in place to be able to really pursue sustainability is generations. For us, we are still trying to claw ourselves out of either poverty, mid-level poverty, or in Malaysia, the middle income trap. You need to be able to balance developmental goals with climate change goals. And everyone in the food chain needs to understand that.
Yeah. Any other comments from any of the other panelists?
Yeah, I think it's information, and the media has it plays a major part here, right? Media plays on emotion. I mean, one example, and again, look at it how I say it, and don't get me wrong, right? But there's a flood in the Philippines, and they go, look at that, look what climate change is doing to the country, right? Well, it's not climate change, right? It's been flooding for years because the infrastructure is so bad that the rain doesn't sink. So, but when you see it, the media comes in and look at climate change, right? So I think that is a major part that, frankly, if you ask me, that ABAC should play, right? To be able to take some kind of a stance, right? Because that information balances everything, right? The right information. I'm not saying the wrong. The right information balances everything, right? And it shows, like the pandemic, how when we learned how to cope with it, what to do with it from the beginning, you see how things change so fast, right? Because we were individually learning and getting much more of the right information about the disease, right, and the cures.
Yeah, I agree with all of you. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Anna.
You talk about information. PR plays a big role. PR can also steer us in the right path or the misguided path.
Right.
Like within when we talk about building and we talk about building, grid manufacturing, and all this, they talk about we'll make sure that we will not be buying from manufacturers who are using child labor or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But bear in mind, in some of these countries, the family community or the family unit is the breadwinner. It's not one person. So as much as we say, yes, we don't use child labor because it is not advocated. I mean, it's logical, right? But what's going to happen to the kid when the mom is working, when the dad is working? No one's going to go after the kid. So if you put the kid with them in the same solar plant, where we're building the grids and all this, is that child labor? In certain countries, that is not child labor. That is, I'm looking after my kid and you happen to hold a meal for me or something, But to the more developed world, that's child labor. You put the kid in that environment. Oh God, it's so hazardous. You're going to kill the kid. The child protection all comes in. Taking a cane in those developed world is child abuse. In our culture, maybe it's just discipline. So I think that's the context we have to get it right. But it's usually very convoluted sometimes or misguided. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to add, to bridge the point about, action and goals, is that I think there's a very famous and popular Nike poster saying that there's no finish line. And it shows this runner who's, running on a marathon, and, he kind of runs towards a beautiful mountain, but essentially there's no finish line. If we take a step back and think particularly around sustainability and the 17 goals and the environment and particularly around issues of people and poverty, there really is no finish line. I think what is very important, though, I think by virtue of this call and this network, and even with you and Global Compact, is to have clear progress milestones. So at least on whether it's typically for us, it'd be either a 3-year basis, 5-year basis, 7-year basis. I think that really moves the needle and helps to eliminate some of the noise around PR and media knowledge. Just every company having clear either 3, 5, 7-year goals. It could be around gender equality. It could be around carbon footprint and emissions. But just by virtue of companies having a philosophy of having very practical goals on a 3, 5, 7-year basis, I think that will move the needle. It's not something that we can individually or collectively solve in 5 or 10 years. Because back to the Nike poster, once you cross one line, there's going to be another line.
Yeah, great point. Thanks for that. And I was keen to touch a bit more on that, collaboration element, right? So, I mean, a lot of these challenges, of course, are complex with a lot of externalities. So in your own journeys, right, as individuals and as companies, so to which extent, right, have you, learned from others, collaborated with others, either in other companies in similar industries, in terms of the inspiration, etc., or some of the stakeholders in your communities, but keen to understand a bit from you, right, on the practical journeys you've been on, a bit of that that collaboration angle, right, collaborating with others, learning from others, right, as we tackle some of these challenges.
I can start, maybe just chip in a thought. One thing we found and noticed in Taiwan in terms of tackling this sustainability challenge is a lot of the solutions and collaboration are interdisciplinary. So typically when you think about one industry, you think about, okay, it could be manufacturing, it could be construction, it could be digital. We found in several cases, it's a bridge between 2 different industries. I'll give you a very simple example. We're now working on developing a new farmer analytics tool for farmers that we work with. Again, that has elements of software, of algorithms, of data visualization that a manufacturing company wouldn't have. But we were able to actually develop the first app in Thailand for farmers with a 92% accuracy on satellite imagery. So those are the example, I think, interdisciplinary innovation to create at least new solutions. Another example is that we're moving to biopackaging, launching the first tapioca-based bioplastics. And typically the food industry is very separate from the plastics and packaging industry, because obviously one is organic plant-based and the other one is carbon-based. But the intersection between food science, food chemistry, material science, organic chemistry, that's much more of an interdisciplinary ecosystem. So this trend, I think, is positive. I think a lot of the younger generation entrepreneurs and funds and people are realizing that a lot of the collaboration can be interdisciplinary and allows us to actually think outside our own immediate industry into new solutions. It could be around digital, it could be around data, it could be around new platforms. But I do think that's a very positive and exciting space for all of us going forward.
I see the other panelists shaking their heads. Yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, so we learned like plenty ways, right? I mean, for example, when the African swine fever hit Asia, right? It hit China first, and then it hit Vietnam, then it hit the Philippines. And our operations in China was already starting to learn about that and taught our Vietnam operations, right? Our food operations in Vietnam about that. So by the time it got to the Philippines too, we were able to pass on a lot of information about that, right? About how to handle it, how to prevent it, how to make sure our farms don't get hit. So in the food industry, we've learned from ourselves there. And then right after that, we call it the double pandemic, because then the COVID-19 happened, right? And again, it happened in China first. So the Chinese, what happened with our Chinese operations, right? Again, we learned from them what it would be like, right? So that was passed on to the rest of our operations in the Philippines and the rest of China. I mean, the rest of Asia. So that was a big help. And then our data science, for example, you know, we're big on digital, our bank and all that, and we established the company in Singapore. And Singapore is where we are now employing our data scientists, our behavioral scientists, and all this, and passing on that information now to the Philippines, right? To learn and to, you know, what's new, what's the latest, how to tackle certain problems. And then within our units, we tackled all data scientists under one, right? So we take all the data of all the units and try to now see how we can make it an ecosystem where we can now cross and learn from each other how to manage that data and maximize it. Yeah. So now our next is to move out to other companies to join our data science, because it's bigger than all of us, obviously, to join our data science journey, right? To be able to not so much to cut the cost, but to learn from each other, right? And grow it. So it's a big part of our journey to learn.
I think for us, you know, property development is a very highly networked industry. I mean, you know, we always say that we really have inroads into maybe about 140, 150 sub-industries, you know, from the banks to the media, to the contractors, consultants, architects, professional services, and right down to our customers where we get into people's homes, right? So we have a lot of opportunity to have conversations with people, you know, to just maybe engage with them and to, you know, even persuade authorities with varying degrees of success, how it is important to take things one at a time. And sometimes, you know, changing behaviors on the ground is actually very important, because you need people to value concepts of sustainability first, and then only change can really take place. If it is always, you know, someone trying to drive a stick, or, you know, if it's always perceived as a Western issue, right, then no one is going to buy it. But really, sustainability at its core has got great appeal to the Asian mindset, because we value family, we value our future generations. So if it is framed in a way that our people can accept, say, look, at its heart, it just means we choose to consume less and more responsibly so that our future generations have more, right? So when we frame those sort of using the media and, you know, as Vena has said, as Anna has said, you know, in terms of the PR element, to say that this actually makes sense to people in their everyday lives, then you start to get acceptance. Then your people, you know, will be willing to pay for it, and then more business can operate profitably in that space, and then it becomes a healthy ecosystem.
So, Cheyenne, I'd love to go after you because it kind of linked to my story too. When we started in Taiwan, slightly more than 2 years ago, there's this place we call Mingus, which is part of GIE area. There's this particular bird dark beak bale or something. It's a huge bird. They will come and avoid the winter. They'll fly to this particular piece of land that we intend to erect our solar grids on. And the environmentalist of black-faced spoonbill bird, yeah. And the environmentalists say, if you take over this piece of land, the birds have nowhere to go, they'll be killed, da 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 da. And a lot of activists were like on our ground, right? Really, really threatening. But you know what? We learned from the ground. We learned from the people there too. We learned that they were scared. They would lose their the grandchildren and all that. Wouldn't get to see the birds would be killed and all that. And we said, you know what can we do? We can either relent and give up the whole project, or we work with them. And that's what we did. So fast forward today, Mingus is one of the biggest, one of our biggest solar plants that we have, and one of the first most energy generating plant that we have in Taiwan. We have also a Mingus Education Center, which, yeah, we brought in children, students to come in and understand, hey, this solar plant is not going to kill your birds. In fact, we are cohabiting with the birds, and there are other birds now coming in. We erected a school there, education center. We brought in our own people. We created employment for the locals there. So some of them were like tour guides, so to speak, you know. Some volunteers to come and activists come in and talk about the birds. More education to the students, to the people around it. And in Philippines, similar stories about wind energy. And you know what, there's this part that I learned it myself. There's some, you know, in Taiwan, there are those Aborigines who have no idea what solar is all about. They thought that by putting in a solar grid, it's going to cause them cancer. You know, so we actually go through the education part to show them. We took the solar grid and we clicked on it and say, no, we are not going to die tomorrow. So these are little things that, you know, oh my God, this is happening. But these are education that you and I may say, oh my God, but to them, oh, this is what's happening. So I think all this helps us to understand them, understand ourselves, help us to go move forward, and they help them create, and it helps to create a lot of values mutually. So it's not individual, but it's, to me, it's always symbiotic, that kind of relationship. Yeah, thank you.
And just one, you know, I think to just build on Anna's point, I think it is truly symbiotic, and also it multiplies, right? So one relationship, you know, the energy also multiplies, the relationships multiply. So completely echo that. It's a very symbiotic outcome.
Great. Okay, well, I think we're already getting towards the end of our session and time to wrap things up. So I really want to thank all our distinguished panelists for the insights. So we've heard, right, in terms of very wide range of goals, in terms of your different organizations, what you're focusing on, the importance of setting, you know, specific targets, right? So we're clear on what we're going after, taking the effort, because it is hard work to kind of like operationalize these targets, understand how this comes together, right? And then get to very kind of like, you know, practical initiatives, right? So underlying all that is having the right, you know, information, but then, you know, working across, right, the boundaries in very, very practical way, right? You all had great stories in your communities of making things happen, of learning from each other, etc. We do have still these challenges in the region, right? Of really the balancing between the kind of like, you know, the development goals, right? That we're also still pushing and need to achieve with some of these considerations. So here also the importance of I think framing things in the right way, right? Some of you mentioned, so that we have that education, that collaboration, you know, and progress on this in our own way. So yeah, really thank you all very, very much for today's session. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and thank you for your insights.
Thank you for hosting, Jurgen. Thank you, everyone.